Hey everybody, it's Ping. We're out here at Fox Raceway today getting to ride on a race bike. Today this is Coty Schock's FXR Chaparral Honda, and these guys have put in some really good rides this year. Had some injuries early on with Mumford, but overall it's been a good season for them, and we wanted to see what this motorcycle was all about. So Michael Lindsay met us out today with their mechanic and Chad from XPR to really let us take this thing through its paces, or at least as best as I could, and see what it was all about. A lot of good parts on here. XPR everything. This is his proprietary setup, but it's all available for sale. If you've got the cash, you can own this motor. So that's pretty cool. So the only part on this bike you can't buy is the front caliper. That's a factory part that they got. Other than that, everything is for purchase, which makes this a pretty cool bike to try because it's something that if you are really looking for a competitive motorcycle, you can go build yourself. Pirelli tires. It's a Han hub with an Excel wheel. Folks at W put that together. UFO plastic, just a lot of great companies involved with this. We'll list all those below so you can see just what goes into making one of these bikes. One thing Michael Lindsay told us is that in these Hondas, the clutch hasn't changed ever since it went from a 125 to a 250F in terms of size. So they probably lack a little bit of reliability. I'm not super tough on clutches, so I can't give you that feedback, but what he said is by going to the Recluse torque drive clutch, these things just aren't going to get hot, fade, and break as nearly as easily. And if you have a Honda in this model range, you might have heard some stories, people breaking baskets and things like that. Again, it's because they're due for an update to increase their size of it all. The Recluse torque drive fixes that problem. These guys said they are watching other Honda teams swap out clutches left and right while they just leave one in for hours and hours. So if you're looking for a fix, if you've got one of these model bikes, this design, maybe have a look at that. It'd be a good fix for you. This is actually Coty's exact race bike as he raced it at the last Supercross. All they did was put on some outdoor suspension. And out here today, initial feeling is very fun, very playful, lots of power, and a typical race bike feel in a couple of ways. For the motor, it's a very broad power. And this is something that obviously you're trying to make as much as you can, but you really want to have it as broad as you can so that from the roll-on to the over-rev, you're making good power. You don't really want any spikes in that power curve. That makes it harder to ride, makes for more mistakes. This has a very linear, very strong power curve. I was able to, in a lot of places, pull third in turns where I didn't think I probably should have been able to. Again, we're still in his Supercross gearing. I probably drop a tooth and get that in more of a sweet spot. I found myself in third in a lot of turns. But the power's, like I said, very broad, very strong, and continues to rev out, which is maybe the coolest thing about a race bike that you don't get from most builds that you would do yourself because you're not going to mess with ECU and have this really expensive fuel. These things will just keep revving until it feels like the cams are going to smash through the motor. It's revving so high, but it just keeps pulling. So a very fun, very usable motor for me. And I'm not riding it as hard as these guys are, but I think for anybody, novice to complete pro, this is a fun setup. As it's not hard to ride because there's just power everywhere. As far as the suspension goes, I've always been impressed with everything Enzo does. And they're still running an air fork on this, which I don't typically love, but we were able to, jump on that today. We made 2 clicker chains just to get it a little softer. What I always feel anytime I get on work stuff or race stuff is firmness. And I forget that that's how it always feels because I'm not going that fast anymore. These guys that are pushing into bumps harder, into jump faces, braking harder, they need it to be more firm. So a guy like me who's vet speed, I get on and it just feels firm, like it isn't working. I'm getting too much feedback on the little stuff. Now you go long or you smash into a bump hard and you kind of brace for an impact and it just goes bloop right through it. So it's doing exactly what it was built to do, just work at a very high level. So as my speed got better today, I definitely liked the way it felt. Stable, planted, very solid. I'm just probably not going fast enough to make it work on that little chatter. But with just a couple clicks, I got it really comfortable and fun, and totally loved riding it. And it's just fun to have a race bike. Always feels like there's no delay in the time you give some input until you get the feedback. So even with this front brake, just as soon as you touch it with your finger, you're slowing down, and the power is significantly more than you get out of a stock unit. So everything is kind of that way. The motor, the suspension, like everything just performs at a really high level. So So very fun. And I think if I'm comparing this to some other race bikes I've ridden, they're not at much of a disadvantage. So that's great for that team. These guys put together a really neat setup, and stoked that they brought it out and let us have a ride on it. If you are looking to maybe look at some of these modifications or what they did, you like the way it looks, like I said, scroll down below. We're gonna have all these companies listed out and where you can go to get those parts. So big thank you to the FXR Chaparral Honda team for having us out, and hopefully we get some more on the rides on these race bikes down the road. See you then.